All right, today we're going to talk about my most favorite letter, the letter Vav. Yay, let's hear it for Vav. Yay, Vav. As we know, every Hebrew letter is also a word. And the word Vav is translated as hook. You're going to see in the Torah. So it means hook. The picture is of like a nail or a hook. It's the number 6. The symbolic meaning means to attach, like a nail would attach to boards. Now, just like we spoke last week, the letter Hey at the beginning of a word means what? The Vav at the beginning of a word means and. The word and is a conjunction combining two words. And so Vav is and because it's combining two words, two thoughts. And so that's why Vav at the beginning is the word and. Now, you'll notice in Exodus 1:1, some of the translations say, now these are the names of the sons of Israel. But another translation says, and these are the names of the sons of Israel. And you'll notice the letter Vav is at the beginning. So it's and. Now what that means, though, is Genesis doesn't really end. It's a continuation of the book of Genesis, because you don't ever begin a sentence with and, because you're combining something. So this let us know that Genesis and Exodus really is like one continuous book. If there's an absence of a Vav at the beginning of a new chapter in the Torah, or when there is, then that means that it's a new beginning, a new era, a new subject, because the end isn't there. The Vav's not there. So that means something new is coming. Now, in Exodus 36:36, it says concerning making Moses' tabernacle, they made the 4 pillars of shittim wood and overlaid them with gold. Their hooks were of gold. Guess what the Hebrew word for hooks is? Vav, or vavim, but Vav is hook. All right, now here's the picture of the ancient hook in Hebrew. It also looked like a Y, but think of it as a hook. If you look at this picture, kind of hooking two things together. Now, when you say the word Vav, you hear the 2 V's. So if you remember, the line is ah. So what is that word there? Vav. The Vav is V. Bet is B. Dalet is D. Gimel is G. Okay, so Vav is V. So this is the word Vav, which is made up of 2 Vavs. Now, what's fascinating is here we see the Vav, or the hooks. They were to make hooks. And so I want you to think in terms of the Vavs were the hooks that is connecting the tabernacle to the earth. Just like the first Vav in Genesis 1:1 is connecting heaven and earth, connecting. So now the tabernacle, which is patterned after the one in heaven, is hooking God's presence from heaven to planet earth. And here we see it's hooking the tabernacle to earth. The other interesting thing about that is just as the tabernacle was the habitation of God while they were in the wilderness, a Torah scroll is the habitation of his word, or the Shekinah, today. Therefore, a Torah scroll is patterned after Moses' tabernacle. And I'm going to show you that. In Exodus 40:18, it talks about how Moses reared up the tabernacle. He fastened its sockets, set up the boards, and put it in the bars thereof, and he reared up his pillars. Well, another word for pillars is columns. And so you can see the columns. If I go back a second, you can think of all those little columns you see all around the perimeter. Those are the columns, okay? Now, here's the columns. But guess what else? In Exodus 26:1, it also says the tabernacle is to be made with 10 curtains or sheets. And if you look at Moses' tabernacle, you can see the sheets that go around. So the tabernacle is made up of sheets. It's made up of columns. It's made up of hooks or Vavs. Correct? Does everyone see that? It's the same Hebrew word. Well, a Torah scroll is made up of sheets. As a matter of fact, in case you didn't know, there are 304,805 letters in a Torah scroll. But a Torah scroll is not only made up of sheets, it's made up of columns. There are 248 columns in a Torah scroll. And guess what? Every single column, as a matter of fact, there's 50 curtains tied together in a Torah scroll. And At the beginning of each column is a vav, a word that begins with vav, connecting each column to the next. You only see that in the original Torah scroll. That's made up of sheets, it's made up of columns, and then they have a word beginning with the letter vav at the beginning of each column, hooking one column to the next. Only God could do that. Fascinating. Now, there is a broken vav. In the word shalom, it's the shin lamed vav mem, but only one place in the Torah is the vav broken. And it's when God gives Phinehas a covenant of peace. We find that in Numbers 25, 7 through 13. God says, behold, I give my covenant of peace. And that word peace there, which is shalom, is written differently than every other time peace is mentioned in the Bible. It's broken. And so, if you remember, Phinehas had in his hand a javelin that he, shish kebabbed Zimri and Cosby with. Well, here, the vav is now broken, made up of a yud, which is a hand, and a vav, which is a nail or a spear. So even there, it shows that, but it also shows, we know Messiah is the one who's been also given a covenant of peace. He's known as the Prince of Peace. But here, since we know vav is also a man, we see a man who's been broken, and with it being a hand and a nail, we see the pierced hand bringing the covenant of peace to mankind. So this also speaks of the covenant of Messiah, the broken vav, as the broken man whose hand has been pierced, which is quite fascinating. Now in, let's see if I have that one. In Leviticus 19:2, God says, you shall be holy for I am holy. But did you know the word kadosh, which is holy, is spelled differently there? When it says God is holy, it has the vav there. But when it says we shall be holy, the vav is missing because our holiness is never going to be as complete as God's holiness. And whenever a vav is missing, it shows the defective. So even though God says be holy for I am holy, it's a different level of holiness. And then finally, you see the letter aleph here. They say the aleph, now the yud hey vav hey, which is God's name, is made up numerically of the number 26 because the yud is 10. The hey is 5, and there's 2 heys. That's 20, and a vav is 6. When they say the aleph, which is the first name of God, and Elohim Adonai, also can be said to be made up of 26, because they see it as the top and the bottom are 2 yuds, and the slant coming across is a vav. Well, 2 yuds at 10 apiece is 20, and vav is 6, so that's 26. So aleph also can represent God, which it does. But the way I see it, when you look at the vav in Genesis 1:1 that connects heaven and earth, remember Jacob's ladder that connected heaven and earth as the vav? Here is man's hand reaching up to heaven, God's hand reaching down to man, and Messiah is that ladder connecting heaven and earth within the letter aleph. Isn't that incredible the way you can look at it? Now here is the you kadosh, you are holy, but God says I am holy. You see the vav there? And then lastly, I'll close with this. Does anyone recognize that name? Eliyahu. Elijah. This is Eliyahu. But did you know that 5 times the letter vav is missing in Eliyahu's name? Now, what's interesting is Eliyahu is supposed to come at Passover. Isn't that right? That's why they have Elijah's cup there. Now, what they say is the vav that's missing, it represents he's the missing man at Passover. And we're waiting for him to bring in the long-awaited redemption. Well, on the other hand, even though 5 times the vav is missing, Jacob's name 5 times has an added vav. How come Jacob's name, Yaakov, 5 times had the vav? They said Yaakov, the heel grabber, stole those 5 vavs from Elijah. Okay, because for some reason it's exactly has 5 vavs that are added. And so they say there's a midrash that tries to come up with the explanation, and they say the reason is Jacob, that heel grabber, sees the 5 vavs as a guarantee Elijah would return to herald Israel's redemption. Isn't that fascinating? So there's the letter vav. Thank you very much. I'll turn it over to Sherry.
All right, let's do a little reviewing because that's how we remember. So vav is a connector. Did everybody get that? It connects. Vav represents what? A hook. and a man. And it is the number 6. Okay, so if you didn't get that, write it all down because it's all important. God made man on the 6th day. Genesis 1:26 says, "Then God said, let us make man in our image." So the evening and the morning were the 6th day. Isn't that incredible? That God would make man, who represents the number 6, on the 6th day. So Vav makes the sound of V in vine. So everybody say V. You put your back teeth behind your bottom lip and blow through it, and you get V. So that's the sound Vav makes. So like the hey, who remembers when a hey is connected to the front of a word, what does hey mean? The. Boy, you guys are good. And when Vav is connected to a word, it means it can also mean other words. I just want you to know that, because if you're going to read your transliterated Bible or your Chumash that is got the words right under it, it can mean now, it can mean also, it can mean lots of other words, but mostly it's and. All right, so let's look at how that works. Here's the word va-yav-del. It means separated. But see this vav right here? It means and. It's not really part of the word yavdel, but it's attached to it. So we're not used to that. So I want you to see how it works. Here's another one. See the vav in front of the et? V'et. It's the vav, meaning and, aleph tav. Everybody see that? Here's another one. See this vav? It's attached to the word yahi, or. It says and was light. Okay, but it looks like it's part of the word. It's really another word. Everybody understand that? Raise your hand if you get it. Okay, good. All right, let's review our vowel points, and we're going to add a couple of this week. So everybody knows if you see the line under a letter, you're going to say ga. If you see 2 dots, you're going to say a. 3 dots, eh. If you see the moon over the vav, you're going to say beautiful. Now, if you see 2 dots under a letter, let's just say it's vav, you're just going to say the sound that the letter makes. So what would you say? V. That's all you do. If it's another letter, what would you say? That's all you would say. All right, so, but if you see a single dot under a letter, you're going to say E, like in C. And the way you remember that, single dot is like a little mouse running across the floor in front of a woman. And what is she going to say? E! That's how you remember it. Silly way, but it works. Okay, but there's more than one way that they do the E sound in Hebrew, and I'm going to show it to you. And it's just another E. It's another mouse running across the floor. But there's a yud up in the word right after it. The yud isn't going to make any sound, no sound at all. You're just going to say the E, okay? So let's try it. So this is going to say V. This is going to say V, and this is going to say exactly. It's very simple. So this is going to say he. Got it? Of course you do. You're so smart. Okay, what about this? D. This is dalet. What sound does it make? D. Okay, so this is going to say D, D, D. Got it? Very good. All right, now, I think Pastor Mark mentioned something like this, that there were 50,000 times that, or something close to that, that the Vav connected the columns in the Torah. But it's used over 50,000 times in the Tanakh, but almost never as a word, a standalone word. It's almost never the first letter of a standalone word. It's almost always connecting something else. So that's an amazing thing. All right, we did that. All right, let's write the Vav. Are we ready? Everybody got a pencil or a pen or something? Vav is easy to write. And it's just you're gonna start with a little slanted line that's gonna slant down from the line left to right. And it's just gonna be short. You're not gonna pick up your pencil, you're just gonna come then straight down. This is the little hook. So you make the little hook and you come straight down. Make the little hook and you come straight down. Hook and down. Hook and down. Everybody got it? Okay, that's the Vav. And let's do some reading now. Pastor Mark showed you this on the PowerPoints. Can everybody read this? This is a Vav, and the line under it, you'll say Va, and the last sound is V again. So the word says Vav. So here we have the line, so we're going to say Va, Y, He. And do you see the vowel points that work together here? But the Yud really doesn't say anything. All right, it's just the E. So Va, Y, He. And that means